We've all probably seen this image, or one like it. It shows the UK on a rare cloudless night taken from a satellite orbiting in space. You can clearly make out the shape of the island, the snow-capped mountains in the Scottish Highlands, the bright dazzling lights of London and other cities, and even the oil rigs scattered across the North Sea. But focusing in on the middle of the country, you'll notice this shimmering belt, a nighttime calling from some of the UK's largest cities: Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, Sheffield and Hull, and countless other smaller cities and towns that form an urban constellation stretching from the Irish Sea in the west to the North Sea in the east. It's home to nearly 12 million people, over 17% of the UK's population, and powers an economy worth £362 billion per annum. If it was a country on its own, it would have a population the size of Portugal and Belgium, and larger than Sweden, with an economy the size of Portugal, Finland and Greece. Within this one region there are 5 major airports, 28 universities, 3 national parks, a rail network serving over 350 million passengers annually and 2 major ports. One out of Liverpool in the west, shipping cargo across the Atlantic, and the other from Hull, serving mainland Europe, the Baltic and Scandinavia. But why does this constellation of cities and towns even exist in such close proximity? In this video we'll explore the remarkable story of how this region was forged and why I believe it represents the defining opportunity for the United Kingdom in the 21st century. This is the story of how Northern England's extraordinary network of cities and towns could be transformed into one of Europe's great megacities, a connected, high productivity urban powerhouse that would rebalance Britain's economy, challenge London's dominance and create the UK's first truly polycentric global city region. Not just another London, but an ecosystem of cities with strengthened identities that combine to form one of the world's greatest economic hubs. Because despite all of these assets and accumulated mass, 3 of the 10 poorest regions in Europe are within this area. On paper, this should be one of the wealthiest regions in the world, and yet the economic divide between it and London and the southeast is today worse than the divide between East and West Germany when the Berlin Wall fell. And to answer why that is and how Britain could fix it to unlock this area into the nation's greatest opportunity, we have to step back 150 years.
20 years ago, there were over 14,000 jobs in the shipyards. Now there are 1,300. In those days, male unemployment of 45% in the area was unthinkable. Now it's fact. But the future, for many in the area, seems, like the present, a betrayal of a proud past.
Across the Western world, we're used to seeing just one dominant city to a region. Like Paris shines as a beacon of light amongst an otherwise darkened hinterland, with all roads pointing there. Same with London, Moscow and Chicago. There's usually no reason to have more than one economic hub in an area, and so one city tends to take over and outgrow the rest. Yet this region, the southernmost part of Northern England, is different. There's Liverpool with its metropolitan region of around 2 million people, Sheffield with 1.5 million, Manchester with over 3 million, while Leeds sits in a region with over 2.4 million. And even smaller cities like Hull, Preston, York and Chester would be considered major cities in most countries. Instead of one dominant place, we get this constellation of towns and cities, each with their own histories, identities and even accents, yet sitting no more than 50 miles from one another, with urban areas that bleed into one another in places. They all evolved to geographically coexist. That's because alongside the Midlands and with inventions such as the steam engine and the spinning jenny, the Industrial Revolution sparked into action all across this region.
Beautifully burnished steam engines, monuments to Victorian technology, this one is nearly 70 years old, have driven the cotton looms of Lancashire for generations.
Manchester's damp climate made it perfect for cotton spinning. Cotton fibres are brittle and they break easily in dry air, but the city's moist atmosphere reduced thread breakage and made spinning and weaving more efficient. While South Yorkshire had easy access to iron ore, and with the surrounding Pennine Hills providing sandstone suitable for grinding and sharpening metal products, Sheffield became a hub for steel production. A high concentration of sheep in West Yorkshire gave Leeds the resources it needed to dominate in textiles, and close access to coalfields in Lancashire, Yorkshire and Durham meant that cheap coal could be used to power steam engines across the region. So each city developed its own specialisation, enabling them not just to coexist but to thrive off their proximity to one another. A culture of science and innovation triggered a fast pace of new inventions, which spread quickly from one workshop to another due to the closeness of these cities and their tightly bound transport networks. And a dense system of first canals and then railways formed a robust economic ecosystem that propelled the region and its wealth. And feeding it all were the ports of Liverpool and Hull. Raw materials would be shipped in, and then finished goods were shipped back out through the same ports. And this globally connected, finely tuned system of trade and manufacturing had made cities like Liverpool, Bradford and Manchester among the largest and wealthiest in the world by the late 1800s. But decline set in following the Great Depression in 1929 and accelerated after the Second World War. As production gravitated towards cheaper labour abroad, automation slashed jobs and coal lost ground to more efficient oil and gas, which de-anchored the region from its natural advantages. With their employment bases hollowed out, Northern England's industrial ecosystem unravelled and eventually ground to a screeching halt. And the UK transitioned into a service-based economy. But this transition was badly managed and heavily favoured London and the South East, igniting a brain drain which spun the North into a doom loop. Less investment led to fewer opportunities, causing more migration to London, a weaker economy, and in turn, less investment. And slowly but surely, the powerhouse belt transitioned into the rust belt. And this essentially brings us right up to date. So while some northern cities like Manchester and Leeds have managed to somewhat adapt to the service-based economy by growing industries like business services, finance and media, other smaller northern cities and towns have been left behind. The industries which birthed them haven't been replaced. Since 2008, the UK's gross value added, or GVA, has risen by 72%. Growth has accelerated particularly since the pandemic, growing by about 13% per year since 2020 compared with 3.2% in the 10 years prior. Leeds has grown at about the same rate, quickening in recent years as the city consolidates into a financial and business powerhouse. And for the last 10 years, Manchester has been a standout performer and is currently the UK's fastest growing city. Its GVA has grown an astounding 131% since 2008, with growth accelerating to an eye-watering 24% per annum since 2020, up from 6% per annum in the 10 years prior. But smaller post-industrial towns not far from Manchester and Leeds, like Rosendale and St Helens, have fared very differently. Both have grown at a slower rate than the national average and took longer to recover from the 2008 crash. St Helens' economy was barely larger in 2020 than it was in 2008. But how would creating a megalopolis in this region help places like Rosendale and St Helens? And what even is a megalopolis anyway? Before I answer that, I firstly want to tell you about this video's sponsor, Exter. These last few weeks I've been using their incredible travel bag to create more storage in my drawers. It's great if you don't have that much room in your home and need to use space more efficiently. It squeezes down and compacts all my clothes, giving me 60% more space in my drawers. It ships with this little portable vacuum which charges with USB-C. It's very small, very light, you press the button and it sucks out all the air. And if you're like me and you're constantly losing your wallet, Exter have something for that too. The Finder card is an ultra slim tracking device with a 6-month battery which is literally the size of a credit card, so it can fit in any wallet or bag. You can connect it to Apple's Find My app and find it anywhere in the world direct from your iPhone. It also has a 75 decibel ringer that you can set off from 300 feet away, see its exact map location anywhere in the world, and get notified the moment you leave it behind. And lastly, they've also sent me this incredibly slim wallet which can fit up to 7 cards in it. It has a metal ejector trigger giving me easy access to all my cards. I've put my Finder card in here so I'll never lose it. And available now is the new Travel Pack Vacuum Kit Pro in collaboration with DOAC. It's a huge upgrade on the previous bag and never loses air. Same compression but better in every way. Now Exter are currently running their 10th anniversary sale with 40% off, but if you use my code CityEd26 you'll get an extra 10% off, giving you 50% off all of these incredible products. Use my code CityEd26 and go to the link in the description and pinned comment below to unlock that 10% off. Thanks to Exeter for sponsoring today's video. Now go and use that link before their 10th anniversary sale ends on the 17th of August. Now you could argue that the North's industrial corridor was a Victorian megalopolis, one of the most economically integrated regions on Earth at the time. Its complex system of imports, manufacturing, production, trade and textiles, with each city playing its own specialised role, remains a key definition of modern megalopolises around the world. In the US, the Northeast Corridor, consisting of New York, Washington, Boston and Philadelphia, is another tightly bound economic system with cities that exchange and collaborate to create an entwined ecosystem that's greater than the sum of its parts. Anchored by the Northeast Corridor rail line, Boston contributes its universities, biotech and research specialisation. New York provides finance, media and global business. Philadelphia provides healthcare, education and manufacturing, while Washington DC is the home of government, diplomacy and policy making, creating a multifaceted and robust economy which serves over 50 million people. In China, the Pearl River Delta is probably a modern equivalent of Northern England's Victorian industrial megalopolis. Each city specialises in its own type of industry, helping to power the whole city cluster. Shenzhen has its electronics and technology innovation. Dongguan provides manufacturing, while Hangzhou specialises in automotive industries and logistics, and Hong Kong provides the trade, financing and international connections. Its system of high-speed rail lines, metro systems and motorways, which have mostly been built in the last 20 years, mimic the railways and canals which acted as the nerve system for Victorian Northern England, creating separate cities but one economic machine. And closer to home, the Randstad region of the Netherlands is home to just over 8 million people, making it much smaller than the 50 million strong Northeast Corridor and the 80 million strong Pearl River Delta. Yet it pulsates as one of Europe's strongest economic regions. Amsterdam provides finance, technology and international connections, with the government and international institutions based in The Hague. Logistics and business services are in Utrecht, while the port at Rotterdam is one of the world's largest and ships goods produced here globally. And I want to be clear that when I say let's build a megacity in the north, I'm not talking about expanding the cities themselves and concreting over all of that countryside between them. This isn't some futuristic proposal, this is just about reconnecting and strengthening an urban network that already exists. The north has the ingredients already to become a British version of the Randstad. Its population is higher, it has assets like universities, airports and ports, and its cities are a comparable distance from one another. The north has all of the ingredients to become a global economic powerhouse, yet its economy just isn't as strong or productive. If Northern England was as productive as the Randstad, it would add an extra 150 billion more pounds per year to the national economy. And I'm interested to know what you would call this region, so like the Northern Metropolis or the Pennine Megacity or like the Northern Constellation or something like that. Pop your ideas in the comments below, I can't wait to read them. And while you're down there, if you're enjoying this video, please make sure you give it a like and a subscribe, and I'm also on Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee if you want to support me even further. Unlike the Randstad, our northern megacity currently isn't functioning as an integrated economic ecosystem. These assets and cities don't integrate and multiply as efficiently as they could because transport connections between them are slow and unreliable. So what can we do to unlock this massive opportunity for the UK? How do we create a global megacity in Northern England? A common thread running through all global megacities is transport. China's Pearl River Delta is connected by high-speed rail, while individual metros provide a robust web within each city. The Dutch Randstad relies on a high-capacity rail network, providing separated fast and slow lines to reduce congestion and increase speed between cities. And in the US, the Northeast Corridor is strung together by Amtrak's Acela service, while in the past, Northern England's rail and canal network would have bound together the Victorian megalopolis. Good transport links are like the skeleton of any megacity. They connect businesses with customers and talent with opportunity, and they break down barriers between cities. And by shrinking distances between cities, good public transport allows entire regions to function as one, unlocking levels of productivity and innovation that no one city could achieve alone. Now, Northern England's modern dormant metropolis already benefits from a vast rail rail and road network. Mostly built during the Victorian era, rail connects the region's major cities to each other and to their commuter belts, as well as surrounding towns, countryside and coastal areas. The Transpennine Express network handles high-speed connectivity between major cities. Liverpool is connected to Manchester and its airport, and both cities are linked to Preston and Lancaster via their lines to Scotland. Manchester then sprouts its own connections to Sheffield and Leeds, continuing on to York, Hull, Doncaster and Cleethorpes. Then the East Coast Main Line connects Leeds and York to Doncaster on its way to London, and the West Coast Main Line connects Lancaster with Preston, Warrington and Crewe on its way to London. And most cities have their own transport networks. Liverpool has an underground metro, Manchester has the largest light rail network in the country as well as a sizable commuter rail network, Sheffield has a tram network, as does Blackpool. There's also a pretty good motorway network. The M62 handles cross-Pennine connectivity between Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds and Hull. The M1 connects Leeds with Doncaster, the M6 links Lancaster, Preston and Warrington, while the M60 provides an orbital motorway around Manchester's metropolitan area. So if Northern England has an extensive rail and road network, then why isn't it a successful megalopolis like China's River Delta, the Randstad or the North East Corridor? Well, the issue is with capacity, frequency and speed. Northern England's rail and road network is among the most congested and unreliable nationally. Taking the Transpennine main line between Leeds and Manchester as an example, it doesn't just serve fast trains between the two cities. Fast trains from Newcastle, Edinburgh, Hull, Middlesbrough and Scarborough also use it, as well as local stopping trains and branch lines feeding into it from Bradford, Halifax and Barnsley, all sharing just one pair of tracks. Alright, so here is that one set of tracks that links Manchester with Leeds, and by the way, most major northern cities are linked by a train line that only has one pair of tracks. It's not just Manchester and Leeds. A local train chugging along and stopping at every single one of these stations slows down faster trains behind it. So if you've ever been on a train that's just kind of crawling along the line, that's probably why. It's probably stuck behind a local stopping train that's stopping at every single station along the route, a bit like a Ferrari stuck behind a tractor. And not only does this make fast trains between cities much slower, it also means that you can run fewer trains overall. Like, you can't have that many fast express trains because otherwise all of these individual local stations will get less of a service. But if you increase the service for these individual local stations, then you can't have as many fast express trains because they'll just get held up by those slower trains. And that's why many smaller stations across Northern England only get 1 or 2 trains an hour. If the line is shared with faster trains between cities, which most are, then there's no capacity left over for slower stopping services, which is why even fast trains are unreliable. Let's say a train breaks down here on our main line between Manchester and Leeds. With just one pair of tracks shared by multiple different services, that's not just going to cause disruption between Manchester and Leeds, it's also going to have a ripple effect that causes disruption for trains all the way up to Scotland, all the way up to Newcastle, down to Hull, and on any branch lines that need to use this main line as well. So one little accident creates a ripple effect that just goes and causes headaches all across Northern England. And because the whole network is run on old, creaking Victorian infrastructure, not only does this kind of thing happen a lot, but it also will take hours and hours and hours for that ripple effect to stop pulsating through the network. And often it just means that there'll be delays and cancellations for the rest of the day. And this is the whole ethos behind major infrastructure projects like HS2. They're less about speed and more about creating a new line to essentially relieve bottlenecks between cities. In the olden days, if you were travelling between London and Birmingham, you'd have had to take this circuitous route, going through loads of villages and towns and stopping at traffic lights and being stuck behind tractors. But then they built the M6 motorway, so now all traffic between London and Birmingham uses this brand new, fast, high-speed motorway, bypassing all of these villages and towns and leaving these country lanes just for local use. So high-speed rail is to the rail network what motorways were to the road network. It separates out fast-moving traffic from slow-moving traffic and creates more capacity for both of those things. It means that local roads don't get jammed up with loads of people travelling between London and Birmingham and other big cities, but it also means that people travelling fast between cities don't get jammed up behind local stopping traffic. And due to decades of underinvestment and stalling on big projects like HS2, Northern England's rail network is one of the least reliable in the UK, with 1 in 10 services frequently cancelled on some lines. So the difference between the rail network in Northern England and the rail network in other more successful megacities around the globe is that they will often have a second pair of tracks running alongside the local stopping pair of tracks. And that means that local trains can stop on this set of tracks here, stopping at every single station. Meanwhile, express trains can just zoom by uninhibited. And that opens up plenty of capacity for these local stopping stations here, meaning that they can get a service every 10 or every 15 minutes as opposed to every half an hour or every hour, as is the case at most smaller local stations across the north currently. But it also means that if a train breaks down, say again here on the express set of tracks, then that's not going to cause disruptions to cascade across the network. Express trains can just use this pair of tracks instead, and although it means they might have to be a bit slower, it sort of means that everyone can just go about their day and not really know or even care that any disruption happened at all, which is kind of how it should be on the rail network. All of these delays and cancellations on Northern England's current rail network mean that if someone living in Leeds gets offered a job in Manchester, they're less likely to take it because they don't know that they'll reliably be able to get to work. It means a business won't set up in Liverpool because they can't access customers and supply chain in another city or town. It means lost work hours from employees late for work. It means people lose out on time with their families because they're stuck on a train somewhere in a field in the middle of the Pennines. It weakens ties between these major cities, isolating them from one another and meaning that they can't feed off each other's economies, talent, ideas, goods and services. And that's further exacerbated by the fact that trains between the north cities are slow even when they're running. Amsterdam and Rotterdam are about the same distance apart as Manchester and Leeds. But trains between Amsterdam and Rotterdam take about 40 minutes, but they take often over an hour between Manchester and Leeds. And combined with the unreliability, that extra 20 plus minutes, even when the train is running, is often the difference between someone wanting to do that commute every day and someone deciding that, actually, nah, I'm not going to take that job. And it's not much better on the roads either. Sheffield and Manchester are the largest cities in Europe to not be linked by a motorway. Instead, motorists have to drive the Snake Pass through the Pennine Mountains, which, as the name suggests, is winding, highly dangerous and closed whenever it snows. They did start building a motorway between the two cities, the M67, but they gave up right here, creating one of the shortest sections of motorway in the country and dooming the once idyllic Peak District town of Mottram to an eternity of interurban traffic congestion. And while the M62 is a trans-Pennine motorway that connects many of the North's largest cities, it's one of the most congested in the UK, primarily because rail connections are so poor that many people opt to drive instead. Now, the government proposed a solution to all of this way back in 2014. Its aim was to create a sort of northern megalopolis by revolutionising transport between major cities. Except instead of along current lines, it would have been an entirely new line linking these major cities like so. So even if a train breaks down here on the old line, it's no longer an issue because trains can just run along the new line instead. And even if trains break down on the new line, like here, that's also not an issue because trains can just use the old line, again, albeit a little bit slower than on the fast line. And this brand new rail line, which was known at the time as HS3 but is today known as Northern Powerhouse Rail, would link Liverpool all the way across the country to Hull with stations at Manchester and Leeds. And when this line was proposed, it was estimated that it would bring an additional £100 billion of GVA per annum to the North's economy. This would have elevated it from having an economy the size of Vietnam or Colombia today to one the size of Austria or Singapore, converting Northern England into one of the wealthiest economic systems in the world. A business in Manchester, Leeds or Liverpool currently has a customer base and employee talent pool of around 2 to 3 million people living in close proximity. But with a revolutionised transport network, that figure rises to over 12 million people, strengthening the region by allowing it to function as one market rather than like dozens of separate ones. But as time has gone on, these plans have been gradually watered down. In 2014, the UK's high-speed proposals were for a Y-shaped network linking London and Birmingham with Manchester, Leeds and Sheffield, with HS3 or Northern Powerhouse Rail providing a structural horizontal mainline across the country to create a robust high-speed backbone for the megalopolis. But the first setback came in 2021 when the eastern leg of HS2 was cancelled altogether. And in 2022, HS3 was watered down, favouring a mixture of upgrades to existing track and some new sections of track. Then in 2023, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak cancelled the western leg to Manchester as well, leaving a fractured network proposal that is unlikely to deliver the infrastructure required to build the northern megacity. Now, the Transpennine mainline is currently being upgraded, and this will actually solve quite a few of the capacity issues that we've mentioned in this video. They're introducing what are known as passing loops on some sections of track. So these are effectively little sort of sections of four-tracking along the existing main line that kind of come out like this. And it means that if a train breaks down, say, here, then the line can still be bypassed all this way here, and you get less disruption overall. But it also means that fast trains can bypass slower trains by just using this set of tracks, while the slower trains use this set of tracks instead and go round. They act a bit like a passing place on a country road. But it still means that if a train breaks down here, you're still going to end up with those cascading bottlenecks across the whole network that you do today. So it's not going to solve all the issues with the North's transport network. A lot more investment is going to be needed for that. Now, in my ideal world, like if I found £100 billion under the sofa, I'd build an entirely new line from Liverpool through Manchester, up to Leeds, and then down to Hull. And it doesn't have to be a high-speed rail line because the distances between these cities aren't actually that great. Even just being a fast new main line would already solve a lot of the problems that we've outlined in this video. It would run all the way from Liverpool to Hull with stops in Manchester and Leeds and maybe a few other big places along the route as well. At Leeds, I'd do a spur here coming off and going on up to Newcastle and Scotland, and that could probably stop in York as well. That essentially duplicates the East Coast main line, which already runs that route, but as we've discussed, the East Coast main line isn't able to take any more trains, so it would be useful to have another set of tracks linking up to Newcastle and Scotland as well. I'd also do a spur up to Bradford here to enable fast trains between not only Bradford and Manchester, but also Bradford and Leeds, as well as maybe down to Hull, up to Scotland, and across to Liverpool as well. At the western end here, I'd have it connect to the proposed high-speed rail line, which essentially runs kind of up this way here, and it's currently proposed to go into Manchester here, but it could just share the tracks with that and run on through Manchester Airport, which is about here, and all the way down to Birmingham and London. And that essentially means that Newcastle, Scotland, Leeds, York, all of these places get a high-speed rail connection all the way down to London. And I'd do a spur from there linking into Liverpool as well. And then I'd also do a new high-speed line between Manchester and Sheffield as well. And that would create another fast Transpennine route to the south of the Pennines, which is kind of what existed before the Woodhead Tunnel closed, I think in the 1960s, 1950s, 1960s, something like that. And that was a fast connection between Manchester and Sheffield. They closed it, and I think that has exacerbated a lot of the problems that have existed in Northern England's rail infrastructure. And that would vastly improve connections between Manchester and Sheffield, which is justifiable on its own. But I would also extend that to Doncaster to then have it run along the East Coast main line. And at Sheffield, you could even kind of loop it round somehow to link into the Midland main line and connect to Derby, Nottingham, and potentially all the way down to London, providing another route to London. And you could even connect that route through Manchester up to the West Coast main line as well. And that would give places like Sheffield and Doncaster and Derby and Nottingham a direct link up the West Coast main line, up to the Lake District, up to Carlisle, up to Glasgow, and into sort of Scotland more generally. And that would provide this robust X-shaped transport network with cross-country trains not only running from west to east, but also sort of northwest to southeast and southwest to northeast. This would create a strong network that would form the backbone of our northern megacity, strengthening connections between major hubs and opening up employment markets across these major cities, making them infinitely greater than the sum of their parts. And I'd also go a step further and introduce a tram network for Leeds and other cities, expand the tram and metro networks in Liverpool, Sheffield and Manchester, and introduce underground metro lines for big cities too, with integrated ticketing to ensure that every neighbourhood is plugged into this new network and enabling the benefits to cascade into every postcode. And as of August 2026, the new government administration under Andy Burnham does seem to have reignited proposals for improved transport investment across Northern England. A brand new line between Liverpool and Manchester is proposed, as well as improvements between Leeds and Bradford, Sheffield and York, as well as capacity enhancements across the network. While there's also rumours that HS2's western branch to Manchester and potentially Liverpool has been revived. As yet, there's no similar commitment for the eastern branch to Leeds though. But for me, there's almost an element of like, we've been here before, because this is almost exactly what was proposed 12 years ago and nothing has happened on that since. The only difference this time, which does actually give me quite a bit of hope to be fair, is that the new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, is the former Mayor of Greater Manchester, and I believe that he, more than any other Prime Minister in living history, understands the potential and the opportunity that exists within this pan-northern megalopolis and how to achieve it, how to unlock it. And while my plans would probably cost in the hundreds of billions to build, it would undoubtedly pay for itself multiple times in terms of economic uplift and tax receipts. London's Elizabeth line cost £18 billion to build, yet its economic benefits in terms of faster journeys, higher productivity, increased business activity and tax revenues, housing development and regeneration along its route have been estimated at £42 billion. In other words, it's paid for itself multiple times over, and I think building the infrastructure required to create our northern megacity would be exactly the same. The foundations of this northern megacity were built by its network of railways and canals. It sparked an industrial revolution which propelled it into one of the wealthiest regions in the world and changed the course of humanity forever. And if those transport networks are updated and enhanced for the modern era, then who knows what this region is capable of. And what an incredible megacity this would be, stretching over 120 miles from sea to shining sea, including a diverse mix of coastal towns, Pennine villages, cathedral cities, national parks, mountains, forests, ports, airports, world-class universities and globally recognised cities. Strung together by a reliable and robust transport network that would be the envy of the world. And finally, Britain could have a counterbalance to London's dominance. And I want to reiterate that all of this already exists. It's like having a house with loads of lights and computers and TVs, but no electricity to power any of it. Wiring up the house and switching on the electric allows all of those appliances to be used to their full potential. And in an era where the UK is looking for creative ways to expand its economy, this one feels like a no-brainer. But what do you think? Can we create a global megacity by better wiring up the North's transport network? And what other regions of the UK do you think have similar potential? I can think of like Glasgow and Edinburgh that have like 4 or 5 different railway lines running between them that form a robust network between the two cities. And sure enough, those two cities are also 2 of the most productive cities in the UK. And what other regions of the world do you think that Northern England could learn from? I didn't mention the Rhine-Ruhr region in Germany in this video just because it didn't really come up, but that is another similar region where you have a cluster of cities that are really well linked by public transport, have really good individual transport networks within each city, and which collectively are greater than the sum of their parts as a result. If you enjoyed this video, then you're probably going to love my video on what is the UK's second city, which you should definitely check out. And also please do check out my Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links if you really enjoyed this video and you want to support me further. Thank you so much to everyone on those 2 channels that supports me. I really, really appreciate it. And thanks again to Exeter for sponsoring this video. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.